Okay, Thanksgiving is almost here, and that means millions of shoppers will be spending on Black Friday, or so we hope, for the health of the economy. Joining us now to discuss the outlook for the big retail names, UBS retail analyst Jay Soul. Hey, Jay. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Do you think it'll be a big, successful Black Friday?
Well, Dan, unfortunately, I think it's going to be an okay Black Friday. I think the data that we get tells us that consumers are going to spend, but they're really prioritizing other categories more than apparel and footwear right now. So they want to spend on their home, they want to spend on travel, they want to spend on experiences. Apparel and footwear is kind of on the low part of the totem pole when it comes to what people want to spend their money on.
That's actually an interesting point, because when you look at the broader economy, the U.S. is doing well, the consumer's doing well. So, I mean, what does that say about apparel and footwear going forward? Are we going to see like a total paradigm shift? Or, I mean, the economy's good. It's not like we're in a recession, so.
Right. Well, Julie,
R.I.P. apparel.
What I would remind everybody is that there's major disruption happening right now in retail. The shift to online spending has continued to make the retail marketplace evolve. People are using the internet to find ways to price compare, better than ever. It's a value-focused environment. People want to go to TJ Maxx, they want to go to Ross stores, maybe more than a department store, where they can find a great brand for a low price. And that's something that's really depressing sales. So yeah, the economy is good. People are spending, but the dynamics within retail specifically are making it hard for the companies to get this kind of sales growth.
Those trends about apparel, maybe people are buying plane tickets instead. Now, do we expect that to hold through the rest of the holiday season as well? Because something that's really interesting to me is that sometimes apparel purchases, especially during the holiday season, will be driven by the temperatures sometimes. If it just gets really cold, more people will go out to buy winter jackets for Christmas, for example. Have you seen that as a dynamic? Is there any expectation for that in this retail season?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great point, because this time of year when it's cold outside, if it's really cold, people go buy jackets and sweaters at full price, and that's great for retail. But what's interesting is the weather in November has been cold, but we haven't seen that lift to sales, that we would expect to get because of the cold weather. So maybe if December turns out to be also cold, it sort of says that we shouldn't expect a great boost because, we haven't had it yet.
Yeah, and when we talk about apparel and how things have shifted, most recently, as I understand it, there's also been a major shift in sneakers that I think might not just be about e-commerce. I mean, we hear a lot about how performance sneakers have just struggled for many, many, many quarters now, thanks to the athleisure trend.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I saw Brian's sneakers when I walked in. They immediately caught my eye because those are some really cool. But you know what? That's what it's all about right there. I mean, what he's wearing is totally on trend, but that's not for running. That's just fashion, and it's cool, and that's what people are buying. So sneakers are good when we talk about that casual side.
And I brought up sneakers. Can we get your take? I know you covered Nike very closely and all those other names. There is something going on with Nike, clearly. The CEO stepping down and that being announced on the same day as Kevin Plank stepping down from Under Armour. The full story there, I feel like, still has not come out, but that is just too big of a coincidence. And of course, Nike has had certain cultural issues in the last year that have been heavily reported on. Where do you see Nike right now and headed into the next year after Mark Parker steps away from the CEO reins?
Yeah, so I mean, Dan, it's very coincidental, I think, that the two things that Under Armour and Nike have at the same time. Maybe there's a story there, but I think the important thing with Nike is, there's been a lot of talk about Nike in the news. We really look at Glassdoor very carefully. So the UBS Evidence Lab does a study of Glassdoor on a regular basis, and what we find is we look at over 70 companies in the apparel and footwear space and get employees' sense of satisfaction with their job. And you know what? Nike still remains at the top.
Okay.
So despite all these things that are going on, the feedback, at least on Glassdoor, still continues to be very positive and really no change year over year.
I just want to get your take on what's going on in women's apparel. I mean, I think there are a lot of things. I mean, as a consumer, I'm using Rent the Runway more, not buying as much. So what is your read on women's apparel? Well,
Julie, you just answered your own question. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways for people to buy apparel now that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago, whether it's Rent the Runway or just buying, off a website like Rebag or something like that, or Fashion File, which is, secondhand goods that can be authenticated and that are strong. A lot of people are more comfortable shopping in the off-price channel. There's a lot of new, Amazon and ASOS and a lot of other competitors coming to the marketplace. There's just so many choices, and really all of them create deflation. And so people are buying fashion, but they're looking for value, they're looking for bargains, and that makes the sales that we see when companies report earnings, look kind of lackluster.
And if I could ask quickly, do people care about malls? Because I just drove past the American Dream not so long ago, and I'm like, I don't know if malls are completely dead.
Right. And yet a new mall also opened right near me recently in Norwalk.
It's crazy.
A huge fancy
Maybe
mall.
it's just a Northeast
I couldn't
thing.
believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the American Dream's interesting because that's not really a mall. I mean, that's basically like Universal Studios with high-end stores attached to it, right? I mean, otherwise, malls across America, they do face a lot of pressure because there's a lot of struggling retailers out there. So if there's about 75 publicly traded apparel and footwear companies, on this New York Stock Exchange, and 15 of them are making zero money. right? And that represents about $30 billion in sales and about 12,000 stores. And a lot of those stores are in kind of the lower end malls that we have in the country. So those malls are going to be under pressure. Now, that doesn't mean a great mall. I think you're talking about the one in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is really cool, or the American Dream, which is super cool, right? There's still a place for them all. People still want to have stuff to do. They want to have fun. They want to go out with their friends. But it doesn't mean, but we don't need all the malls that we have. If we have 1,100, maybe we need fewer than that. But it doesn't mean malls are dead.
Yeah. And parking is just awful.
Oh, God,
that's
a whole other thing.
All right, Jay Sol, thanks so much.
Thanks,
really
Dan.
good insights.
Thank you.
Hey, investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.